Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us. K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
Hello and welcome to another night of Tuesday Night Mania here on Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I'm your special host today, in the absence of Ace, Dragon Viper, and my co-hosts here tonight. They're here. Next to me, we have Chris P. Bacon. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing good. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing good. And then we have Joe. It's Joe Coons, baby. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Doing good. And then we have Will Hudson from Top Rope Collectibles. How are you tonight?
Doing great, Dragon Viper. What's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. Just getting the show on the road here. So, and we're going to be doing our normal format here, talking about a little bit of AEW and Impact and going on from there. So, now we're going to be, I believe Will is going to be talking about AEW. No, he's going to be talking about Impact. So we'll start with Joe on AEW and how it went on Rampage and Dynamite.
Well, my take for Rampage and Dynamite this week is that the ratings are down. The product is starting to become exactly like we say it was going to be. It's becoming stale at the points and almost like it's predictable what's going to happen. The whole world title tournament, we know what's going to happen. It's going to be Moxley and Bryan Danielson. And the TBS Championship Eliminator there, to me, I like it because I think it's going to set up, hopefully, whoever wins it will be positioned to be in a world title picture later on, that they're going to give somebody a run and say, okay, you can hold this, so now we're going to give you a shot. But the takeaways from it was like it was pretty much the same. I mean, the best match on the card, honestly, was Bryan Danielson and Dustin Rhodes, which happened to be the longest match of the whole entire show. It was like 14 plus minutes, I think it was. The Cody Rhodes Malachi Black match, which was like 11, which was the second longest, was subpar. I was really, for being a blow-off trilogy match, I was expecting more out of it, but maybe that's just me being the fan. But I didn't feel that I got justification out of that.
Okay.
And then
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and then they went into their taping on Sunday for their YouTube over at Universal Studios, and in 4 hours, roughly, they taped 49 matches.
Oh, wow. It's a lot of matches.
Yeah, that definitely is a lot of matches. I mean, I wonder how many matches each person wrestled, because I'm sure they would have been exhausted, after a certain point. So,
well, Cody showed up in a new gimmick, which he's playing off as he's not a part of Fergio's tag team partner, but he is. Tony Nese made his debut on there. Pretty sure that he's signed, but they probably won't announce that until after he has his match on there. Adam Cole did have a match on there. So they have some mainstay people on there, but I mean, it's pretty well the people that they're not using on Dynamite right now.
Okay. All right. And is there anything else on AEW before we move on to Impact?
Nope, not yet.
All right. Well, then we're on to Will with Impact.
Yeah, so Impact, a couple of key takeaways. Number one, you had Alexander defeat Christian for the Impact World Championship, and then, they had it all set up where his family's in the ring, they're celebrating and all that. And then in comes Moose to cash in his number one contender spot, takes the title, so he ends up being champion. Supposedly the big takeaway from that big event of that was the fact that they are no longer in partnership with AEW after that match. So I don't know how much I truly believe that, because I think the two of them pairing together has been great for both companies. So I don't know how much I really believe that. I think they'll find a way to, reconnect with each other. And then of course the Knockout Championship ends up going to Mickey James from Deanna Prato. So, that's a big win for Mickey. Um, she's really late in her career, and to still be winning world titles, that's a huge deal. So those are the two big takeaways. Talking about Big Morrissey for a while too. He's still a huge player. You look at the guy in the ring. You look at the guy. You know, he's world championship material, and he's definitely going to be involved where world title picture. That guy's going to be a world champion, and I think once Braun gets there, if that ends up being the plan, I think he'll end up with a pretty good feud with Braun. So that was really the big takeaways from Bound for Glory. Of course, the Iconics are inspiration. They come in, they win the tag titles, but I don't think that shocked anybody. And I think that'll fizzle out really fast because I don't think they have enough of a following to really go very far. That was really it for Impact.
Okay. Now, William, I have a question for you. When it comes to Impact, and I want to hear your opinion on it. With this supposed split from AEW, do you think that AEW made Impact more relevant, and now they're going to be irrelevant, or does it really even, change anything if they really did split?
I think they've split, but I think they'll come to terms and they'll reconnect. But I think it was a way to get more mainstream talent TV time, because you had more programming, you had more episodes. But I also think having an AEW top competitor as the Impact World Champion kind of weakens the Impact structure, the card itself, because if your own company can't produce a champion that can defeat the AEW star, then that's not a good look. So I think that was a lot more of the idea behind ending the partnership than it was for them not to work together. I think they'll still work together. I think they'll work something out. It'll be negotiated. But again, if Roman Reigns went into Impact and became the Impact World Champion, it doesn't benefit Impact at all for their world champion to be some guy from WWE, just like it didn't benefit them at all for their world champion to be some guy from AEW. But for them to have their own Impact World Champion to take away that title from the AEW star, that helps their company. It helps them seem more legit. Another thing, too, I really liked about Bound for Glory was the whole Rhino Heath Slater deal. I thought that was pretty good, too. So I was pretty happy about that. But it wasn't really much of a storyline. It wasn't, a big deal or anything. But I was pretty happy about that. Pretty cool. So, but I definitely think there'll be a continued partnership. I just think it'll be restructured.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So, I actually want to know your guys' opinion on that too. With the whole, if the split is actually happening, while we're on the subject. Joe, how about you? Do you think that it would be a good thing for Impact to split from AEW if they really are, or what's your opinion on it?
Well, that like Will says, that's the big rumor. And I think this split, if it does happen, it's going to affect a couple of things, because I guess their plan was to bring in Braun, and then Bronson Reed was supposed to be there at Bound for Glory, and they keep saying Bray Wyatt was supposed to be there, but the fact is Bray Wyatt's not going to be there. He can't be there. He's not obligated to be there until after October 29th. If he does anything before that with them, both sides are in a whole lot of trouble. Yeah. So Bray's not going to show up there until probably, if he does sign with them, not until their next set of tapings. But that affects those guys' money a little bit, because like Will and I've been talking about and we've been discussing, for the Impact guys to get that rub a little bit, it works for them, especially if Impact wants to sign big name talent that they can't really afford. They can pawn them, not they'll loan them out, so to speak, to AEW so they can make that money, and it works out for both sides. But I think for right now, though, Impact needs to do what Impact does best and just try to get themselves back on track, create their own stars like they used to back in the day. They didn't really have homegrown talent like a lot of people think, but they had good starting talent that became their homegrown talent. And that's what they need right now, is to take some of their established stars that they do have that has some name value and help create that next set of talent that's going to help Impact if Impact intends to survive.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. They've got some, I've seen some talent come in there and in Impact and do really well, and then when they go to another company, they already are excelled out because of what created them. So, Chris, do you have anything to add on that?
I mean, you guys kind of hit it on the head. I mean, it's gonna hurt both sides a little bit because it's almost like a cross promotion of kind of sharing the talent and growing everyone that's there. But hopefully, they can get an agreement going and try to work things out.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that? Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and start an open forum on rumors and general discussion. I'll start with you, Will. Any rumors or anything like that?
Only rumors really are talking about how AEW's viewership is down, their ratings are down, all that stuff. A lot of that I think is just being fed to people. I think it's being fed to the media and all that, so they can push it out and comment about it. I don't think AEW ever had any plan, at least up to this point, to be the dominant wrestling promotion. I think they want to be their own wrestling promotion. So if they do 200,000 or 300,000 less views on a Wednesday or Thursday this week, or a Saturday show or whatever, I don't think that's really their thought process. I think they're just thinking, well, maybe we did 300,000 less than the big company out there, but we still did 1.5 million views or whatever it may have been, 1.2.5 million views. So I know that's really heavily talked about, and everybody's acting like this is the destruction of AEW already, but I don't think that's the company that they're going after, or that's the spot they're going after. But they're also going out there and taking away 1.25 million views from WWE, and they're out there going away taking away 1.5 million views from WWE. So WWE may not be getting 2.5 million views right now because 1 million viewers will watch WWE. That I think is what they're going after. They don't need as much sustained income coming in to run the AEW because, again, even with them touring and doing a little bit of touring and hitting certain cities and stuff, the buildings that they're filling up are not major convention. They're not major arenas. They're not major stadiums or any of that stuff. So they don't need what WWE needs to sustain itself. So I think we can kind of put that rumor to bed a little bit. In the long run, if they're going to be the global dominant company, they got a lot of work to do.
Okay, all right, yeah, and you're right on that. I mean, they're their own company. I mean, they could go back and forth, and they can say, well, we're in a war, but is it really? Are they really wanting to be in one? I mean, so, Joe, do you have anything?
I actually got quite a bit tonight. I was just clicking on something, and WWE fires SmackDown ring announcer Greg Hamilton.
Oh, I heard about that.
I
issue.
just seen it. It just came popping up on there.
Why?
Well, the report is stating that he was released yesterday, and he has been with them since 2015. And it says, for those unaware, Hamilton took to Instagram recently and noted that he wasn't a fan of rapper West Side Gun. And I don't listen to rap music, so I have no idea who this guy is.
Yeah, I heard the story.
Using a sample of his voice on his recent track, he went on to say that he would sue Gunn In his original post, which has now been deleted, it was noted that he wouldn't call WWE lawyers if Westside Gunn apologized for using his voice. So there's that. And I guess we can talk about, there's all kinds, but I think the big one out there is what happened this past Friday on SmackDown with Charlotte Flair being quote unquote escorted out of the building, going off script with her and Becky Lynch. There is so many rumors going around on that right now. That one I seen today was that Bianca Belair, with her promo that she did with Becky Lynch going into Crown Jewel, everything that she said about Becky Lynch was actually meant for Charlotte. And that when Charlotte got to the back this past Friday, she wouldn't even talk to Vince. Basically was escorted out of the building for whatever reason, hopped on a plane, headed to Orlando to support Andrade. And Vince either messaged her or whatever and told her to leave the building because they did not want her to possibly show up on AEW television, which truthfully, AEW is smart enough. They wouldn't do that. That would be a major lawsuit and one that they would not recover from because Vince, he would take them to the woodshed on that.
Oh, yeah.
But there's talk that she's unhappy and that she's trying to get herself fired maybe. But
I've heard that, yeah.
She is not the most well-liked person in the back right now. She's probably like the number one hated heel right now. And everybody's actually taking Becky Lynch's side on that. And other than that, I mean, every other news and rumor out here, Braun Strowman's making his first indie wrestling appearance coming up in Wisconsin, his backyard, which happens to be like, he lives like 15 minutes from my brother and sister-in-law, which I didn't know that.
Wow.
For a long time up there. My niece actually served him at a bar the other night, shot me a picture of him sitting there. Said, do you know who this is? I said, yeah, that's Braun Strowman. Everybody knows who he is. Wasn't he in WWE? I said, yeah, he was WWE. But he was. And but he's Hornswoggle has a promotion up there, and he's doing his first indie show up there. So that's a good sign for him. At least he's taking some indie dates up there. Yeah. Maybe we'll start to see him go by the name Titan here soon, showing up somewhere.
So two things I'd like to kind of throw out there. Number one, with the ring announcer getting terminated, the comment that I'll make with that is it sure doesn't take much these days to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, I think the whole Charlotte Becky Belair thing is a work because
I feel the same way. Absolutely.
How else do you create that much heat with a talent today and make a big match feel for an upcoming SmackDown versus Raw at Survivor Series than have Charlotte captain a team and have Becky captain a team? So I think it's a work. I don't think it's a shoot, and I think it's all social media again. Let's spit out what we want them to know and what we want them to hear, and let it spread. And that'll help drum up pay-per-view buys. That'll help drum up people subscribing to Peacock Network, and it'll draw people to the audience as far as this match. I think she's too professional, and I think her dad has her trained well enough to know that you don't throw away a tremendous opportunity. If you're wanting to leave a company, you simply ask for a request to get out of your contract, or you wait till your contract's done.
Well, I'm just my question is, and I'm just kind of wondering, when is it going to be? Because you see certain wives and girlfriends who are in WWE, and their husbands and boyfriends are in like AEW or Impact. And it gets to the point where they finally say, okay, I want to be with my other half. Is Charlotte going to get to that point where she's going to say, I want to be, with Andrade? Is she even going to get to that point? Or, do you think she will?
So, I think when contracts end, or if she asks for a release from her contract, I think so. But at the same time, you got to remember the pay that you got to remember you're in the big leagues. You're on the top tier, and you were on the top tier before anything else. And I think she's so professional that comes before all. And, it's a shame sometimes when those relationships get split up like that. But at the same time, it's not easy to work with a spouse. And, they're only apart, a couple days a week because one goes, one way and one goes the other way. But then often it seems like they're accompanying each other. When she goes to Raw, it seems he's kind of tagging along. When he goes to AEW, it seems like she's kind of tagging along. So they're not apart that much. And also, too, there's so many right now that are doing it. Look at Zelina and what's his name, Malachi Black, and that whole thing. So I don't know, man. Honestly, when you're in the big leagues and you're top tier, I mean, in all regards, and this can be argued by anybody and everybody, but in all regards, she's the number one women's wrestler in the entire world. There's nobody really better than her, or at least recognized to be better than her, even though we may all have our own personal favorites. She's really the top women's wrestler in the entire world. So to go and move over to AEW or anything like that is really kind of beneath her. At least that's how I look at it from her perspective. Not necessarily mine, but from her perspective, it would be like going from the major leagues of baseball to the minor leagues of baseball.
Right. I mean, do you agree with that, Joe? I mean, do you see a certain point where she's going to leave, where she would leave WWE and be like Lana and Peyton Royce and go be with her man? Or, I mean, do you see her just sticking it out with WWE while he's in AEW?
Well, the EST did get ranked number 1 in the PWI Women 150 this year, so that says something. I mean, Charlotte has said that she wants to at some point in time work with her husband or soon-to-be husband. So there's always that possibility. I don't see Andrade going back to WWE anytime soon. And I'm not sure how long Charlotte's under contract for. And let's face it, Charlotte's not getting younger by WWE standards, unfortunately. And women get looked at upon that, which is unfortunate for them, but it's true. I mean, you can have a guy like Goldberg or an Undertaker or even say Chris Jericho, who are in their 50s and still able to go, but a woman in her 50s still wrestling is not looked upon very good in the wrestling business, mm-hmm. and it's an unfortunate thing because I think they should be treated just as fair. I mean, if they're able to still do what they do and do it respectfully and feel that they can do it, then that shouldn't be a problem. So, but as far as WWE standards go, we all know what's going to happen there. Eventually, she's going to get booted at some point, or she's going to break the father's reign, which is something that WWE's always planned to do. I think, just don't know. I know that some people feel she's tough to work with right now, but she's a second generation. She has a lot to carry. I mean, your father's the nature boy.
Yeah.
And we've seen this from a lot of second and third generation wrestlers. It's tough sometimes when they come from that famous family to carry those legacies because they're instilled to be just like them, but they're also trying to carve their own path as well. And a lot of times that there's a lot of headache and heartache that comes involved in that. So do I see her going to AEW? Probably down the line, but not anytime soon. I feel like Will does. I really think it sets up, instead of them having a team, being that they're both champions and Survivor Series is champion versus champion, you're going to get those two guys, two ladies going at it, for their brands.
Okay. And we have a couple of comments here. Larry Walker says, "What's up, everyone? Hashtag TRC for life." And Stephen Coleman saying, "Yo, yo, yo. Hope you guys enjoy." I can't even talk tonight. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. And Joe, do you happen to have any more rumors or anything like that? Or
no, I've seen WWE's 2022 pay-per-view schedule, and there is mixed emotion between a lot of fans about them thinking that WWE is trying to hurt AEW by running Saturday nights, but I don't believe that's the case at all. I, in fact, enjoy it, and I think they've listened to a lot of fans that are parents, because a lot of them say that it's hard for them to watch a show on Sunday with their families because their kids have to go to bed and school and things like that. So
Unless it's
I'm
Crown
actually
Jewel.
right, unless it's Crown Jewel in the middle of the week. But I like it. I think it's setting up for their September pay-per-view in the UK. Everybody was thought they were going to get SummerSlam, but that's a big one to have on that early in the daytime and make it just work. But 2 nights of WrestleMania, I think, is good. I'm fine with that. Only one that was a little crazy for me was seeing SummerSlam for the first time in 35 years in July. But being inside Nissan Stadium, I think it's pretty cool.
Okay. And Chris, do you happen to have any rumors that you've heard?
I think I heard a couple weeks ago that Bray Wyatt was supposed to be in AEW, like for their Halloween show. I think it was going to be for Rampage. That would be the day his contract expires. I don't know if it's it's just rumors, but it could happen. And in that, WWE's pushing Reigns to be the greatest of all time. So I don't think he's going to lose the title too soon. That's just what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think they want him to break Brock's record of 500 days, is what it is.
That's why they're pushing the numbers of how long Brock was champion compared to Roman Reigns.
Which will set them up at rough.
Okay, can't hear you there, Joe.
Yeah.
And now, guys?
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Now we can.
Which I...
Oh, there he goes again.
Can't hear.
Can't hear you. All right. And, I mean, do you have anything to say about that, Will?
No, I mean they're obviously setting up a major, Brock and Reigns deal, but it all seems like a distraction almost, to get everybody's mind off of The Rock and Reigns. So I think if Brock and Roman is the main event at WrestleMania 38, I think that's a major disappointment and a major letdown because we've seen that match multiple times, and that's not the main event of WrestleMania anymore. I mean, it may have been at one point, and I don't know what else is going to be in the main event, but to put the Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns in the main event, that's not a main event match anymore.
So. No, I definitely agree. I mean, they were talking about possibly waiting till WrestleMania 39. I believe that's when they're in LA, and putting The Rock versus Reigns and keeping Reigns as the champion until then. So they were trying to get Rock versus Reigns at WrestleMania 38, but then they're like, well, it would make more sense to have The Rock versus Reigns at WrestleMania 39 because that is in LA. So,
and you wouldn't have to travel anywhere.
Yeah. And then we have a comment from Steven saying, I know you was speaking on Charlotte Flair, but I just wanted to add that I think the Becky train is about to pull into the station for good.
It looks like it. Her title's up for grabs Monday against Bianca, supposedly.
So, I mean, is Charlotte still? I mean, Charlotte's on SmackDown, so is she going to be on Raw?
No, Charlotte's
no.
Okay. All right.
Woohoo! I'm back.
Hey, and Joe's back, and we can hear him again.
Yo, my daughter was calling in, guys. Sorry, I kept denying her phone call.
Oh, I know that feeling. So,
I'm on the number one podcast. You gotta leave me alone.
So what were you saying now?
Oh, nothing. I kind of heard what Will was saying there, and like I said, I think with the Roman Reigns, they want to build him up to where he surpasses Brock or gets that 500, and it sets him up for a WrestleMania rematch. But like Will says, I mean, the lackluster unfortunately has wore off on that. I mean, you got 2 nights at WrestleMania. I don't. The rumor is they're not going to set that stadium up to full capacity. Which, if you do, you can pack in over 100,000 fans both nights. I mean, the first time they said it, they had over 100,000 fans, which was, we know how WWE likes to inflate their numbers, and they were nowhere near 100,000 plus on their first time around. So, do I tune in to watch it? Yeah, it's WrestleMania. Of course, I'm going to tune in to watch it, but is it going to be like, ooh, Roman and Brock getting to go at it? I was more happy with this one. I thought it was going to be a really good match, and I was more happy with Brock because Brock did more in this match than what he's done in quite some time.
Absolutely.
Which is what I like. I kind of wish, in a way, he goes back to the old Brock with the Kurt Angle style when him and they were going at and do a little bit more. But I mean, for my money's worth, at some points in time, I kind of thought Brock was going to win, even though I knew he wasn't going to win.
Right.
But he made me feel like, oh man, maybe they might just pull a swerve ball over a smart Marks out there.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Heyman throwing out the belt and
Yeah, he
Brock
says, you know what to
picking it
do
up.
with it.
Like he was talking to Brock, like, you know what to do.
I hope we get an action figure of this Brock, because I do like this new Brock Viking style going on there. I like the hair and the beard.
Let me say this: we all agree that Brock and Reigns is not main event worthy of WrestleMania anymore. What is WrestleMania main event worthy now?
Ooh.
You know, the problem is WWE has done so many things that's repugnant that right now it's really hard for me to even say what would be a main event, because you've already put the women on, which was groundbreaking, and really nothing right now. I mean, Drew and Roman, but I mean, they've already fought. I mean, right now, unless they bring somebody up or somebody gets really, really hot that you haven't seen, nothing yet. I don't feel anyways that there's a worthy main event match right now.
You could do a Drew and Brock again, another like WrestleMania rematch, but this time it'd be in front of fans.
I want a Bobby and Goldberg rematch.
There you go. There you go.
And then
Goldberg lasted longer too this time.
And then we got a couple comments here. One from Steven saying, "I'd like to see another fatal 4-way elimination match like they did for WrestleMania 2000." Ray says Lashley versus Lesnar. And then we have Steven saying Reigns, Lesnar, Drew, and Finn.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I like the Lashley Reigns. That's been one that's been talked about. I will go with that. Would be a great main event matchup if they allow, like I said, if Brock goes back to doing his amateur stuff against Lashley and his amateur stuff, they could have a really good matchup. I think probably not as good as Angle and Lesnar, but
I
pretty close.
I don't think that'll ever happen, because I talked about this before. I think the thought process behind the scenes is these two guys are both extremely competitive. They're both MMA fighters, and they're going to get out there, and one of them will end up hurting the other one, or they'll both hurt each other. And that's a huge investment to lose one or both in one match. And I think that's exactly what it is that keeps those two from clashing. Plus, with Lashley losing to Big E, and then Big E beating Drew McIntyre, I don't see any way they could put Lashley up there in the picture with Brock.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, main event match with WrestleMania right now, I couldn't even point one right now. They have too many bad guys and too many good guys, and not enough star quality in really any of them right now. So, all right. So we're gonna move on to what if, and this discussion topic is about CM Punk winning the 2014 Royal Rumble. So go ahead, Will, with that.
So CM Punk, he left the night after the 2014 Royal Rumble because he felt like the older talent was still getting pushed. And even though Batista ended up winning that Royal Rumble, Batista went on to triple main event WrestleMania, but he did win the title and he didn't carry it away. And he didn't stay in WWE very long afterwards. CM Punk's big fit was bringing back these older guys or these older wrestlers and putting them in main event spotlights. And he was mad about it, so he left. He walked out. He quit. But what if he didn't? What if he would have won the 2014 Royal Rumble and went on to main event WrestleMania? And in that case, he goes on to main event WrestleMania 30, in my opinion, with Daniel Bryan, because Daniel Bryan was the hottest thing at that time. And then he ends up losing to Daniel Bryan because obviously they want to put the belts on Bryan at that point at WrestleMania. And then right after that, Bryan gets hurt. Bryan got hurt either way. Right after that, he was gone. So what if Punk had won the Rumble, went on to WrestleMania, ends up losing, Bryan takes the belts, Bryan gets hurt. Where does that leave Punk? Leaves Punk main event spotlight picture. And I think then you never see Punk go away. And I think Punk would have been a multi-time world champion after that and stayed in WWE. So one little swerve in that match and having Punk win that instead of Batista, I think that was a huge miss for the company and a huge draw that they lost by losing Punk. Plus, you got to remember too, at WrestleMania 30, Undertaker loses to Brock, so you lose that mystique part of Undertaker being the undefeated streak, which really was kind of the main event for a lot of WrestleManias versus whatever the world title picture was. The match everybody went to see was whether or not the Undertaker would keep the streak. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts about Joe, Chris? Have any thoughts about what Will said? I mean, do you see him advancing and being a multi-time champion, or if he actually won the Rumble?
I do, but
Yeah.
I wonder how the Yes movement would have played into that, because Triple H, wasn't he a big part of the Yes movement, getting that going by saying, Punk, you're too Bryan, you're too small, you're not championship material, things like that.
Yes, because at the time there was no other big heel to push against that.
So does CM Punk take Triple H's place then, as saying you're not worthy enough to be in this position and things like that, and that's how we get the Yes movement going?
How you get the CM Punk versus Bryan at WrestleMania? Absolutely.
Okay, I can see that happening then. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, anything can happen at that point, and I think Punk would be in WWE for a long time, at least up until now, maybe more years. But
I agree.
Well, I mean, wasn't Punk like on fire and popular at that year too? So it would be the Yes movement versus CM Punk and his, following with how big he was at that time. I mean,
so in 2014 at the Rumble, Bryan was the favored to win. Bryan's the one everybody wanted, but also too, Roman Reigns at that time was also extremely favored. So when Bryan gets eliminated from the Rumble, they all started chanting, "We want Bryan." But at the same time, when Reigns ends up getting eliminated in that Rumble, they all booed like crazy because they also wanted Roman Reigns to win it. Now, 1 year later, of course, in 2015, Reigns does win it, and they boo him out of the building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I was trying to remember the one in 14, but yeah, they were okay. Yeah, I could have seen a really good match. I mean, we could have with at WrestleMania with Bryan and Punk. So that actually would have been really good.
Talk about a love-hate relationship with Roman Reigns. 1 year you like him, 1 year you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had to constantly reinvent his character, just like John Cena said during the shoot interview. But, another thing, too, with Bryan, he wins that world title, and his immediate feud becomes Bryan and Kane. That doesn't go very long or very far. Bryan's injured, and he's several years.
Right. And in 2014 Rumble, wasn't it Punk and The Rock, too? Punk was coming off of that 400-plus day.
No, that was 2013.
Oh, I got the year mixed up. Okay. All right. Punk was disgruntled at that point, too.
Yeah.
Well, now here's an added thing. how relevant and how popular would have Punk been if he didn't do that mic bomb incident, mic drop? Would he have been more less relevant
he would have
if he didn't do it?
he would have been right back to being just a straight edge Punk with Gallows and Serena. I mean, he wouldn't have had any of that momentum going into it. You got to remember the whole idea of that pipe bomb was to build him up big enough to seem like he could compete with John Cena, who at the time everybody referred to as Super Cena.
Yeah.
So, because Super Cena never really lost very much at pay-per-views and really was beating everybody. So they had to come up with something that seemed big enough for somebody to be able to take Cena. And then, of course, you get to Money in the Bank that year, and he ends up taking that WWE Championship off Cena, walks out through the crowd, goes away for an entire month. You don't see him. Then he shows up at SummerSlam and has the match with Cena as well.
I heard all of that from what CM Punk, what he did. He gave Vince a fake copy of what he was going to say, and then just kind of, went off the cuff with what he really said.
Yeah.
Well, that I didn't.
I didn't know that either, but I liked that era of Punk because it made me question, because I knew his contract was up, and I knew that for a long time he didn't resign, and then when he wins the championship, they still kept it pretty quiet that he resigned with the company. So I'm like, holy cow, man! Somebody won the championship and left with it, and he's taking pictures of it in the refrigerator, and all these other places, and I'm like, holy cow! I was actually, for the first time in a long time, actually intrigued, because I was kind of curious where this thing was going to play out.
All right. And then we're going to go to wrestling historical moments. Sting versus Jeff Hardy, Impact. Hardy unable to compete in the match. Will?
Yeah, Victory Road 2011, Impact Victory Road 2011. So Hardy comes out. He's clearly impaired, and he refers to that moment as about a moment. He gets in the ring. He kind of hovers in the corner. Can't really stand very well. Can't walk very good. The referee realizes that he's really not able to compete and calls several times out to the timekeeper to not even call the match to start because he's unable to compete. Sting comes out. Sting is very embarrassed, very upset, doesn't really know what to do. Hardy kind of walks around for a little over a minute, maybe 2 minutes, pretending like he's going to throw his shirt into the audience. Finally, he does. Sting gives him a couple quick hits and gives him the Scorpion Death Drop, and literally uses all of his weight to pin Hardy's shoulders to the mat. Hardy clearly kicked out, but the referee knows that they got to do everything they can to end this match. So, and just before this happened, before the bell rang, Bischoff comes out and makes it a no disqualification match and tries to play off that he's the heel and support of Hardy and against Sting, but they knew that Hardy was in no shape to compete. They let this match go. This was the main event of the Victory Road 2011 pay-per-view. They let the match go, and back to what I was saying, Sting puts all of his body weight down on Hardy's shoulders to pin him a little less than a minute into the actual match, and pins him, retains the title. And even when he's going up the ramp, the crowd is chanting, this is bullshit. Sting's telling the crowd as he's going up the ramp, I agree. I absolutely agree. It is. And, he had hit rock bottom. It was a bad place for Hardy at the time, but it was an extremely historic wrestling moment. And if you get the chance to go back and look at it, I highly recommend it because it's not a Jeff Hardy you would really think you would ever see. It was a very unprofessional moment for him and a very professional moment for Sting. So if you ever want to see what it looks like when a wrestler has to hold another wrestler down to pin him against what the script says, that's what it looks like. Extremely historical moment.
Yeah, I remember actually watching that, and it was sad. I agree with Ray on this. It was really sad. I felt bad for Jeff because he looked. He was intoxicated and out of it, but he looked so lost into what he was doing, And I mean, just watching him, I'm like, man, I don't even know why they even allowed him into the ring, let alone to be in this match. They could have come up with something real quick, right last minute type thing, and put somebody else down there or something. But for them to allow Jeff down there while he was in that kind of mental state with being intoxicated. I don't understand how they were able to, how they allowed that. So,
Well,
yeah,
extremely poor management of the company at the time.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it was, and so I felt real bad for Jeff Hardy, and I watched it, and I'm just like, I'm thinking to myself, well, hopefully this doesn't last very long, so that way, he can gain whatever composure he's got, go back and try and gain some, dignity back for being that way on camera. So,
Right.
I mean, Joe, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, I listened to 83 Weeks, and Eric Bischoff does a lot of stuff for WCW and TNA. And one of the episodes that he discussed was this Victory Road pay-per-view. And he goes into great details about it. He said it's one of the worst days of his professional career. At the time, it was known that Hardy was drinking, and he was also very much into taking painkillers and other prescription drugs. And the day of this event was a different day because usually Hardy comes in and they see him. And Bischoff said that day Hardy came in and went straight to his little dressing room, which was the trailers in the back, and they didn't see Hardy until just about the time that he was going out to the match because they already knew how the match was supposed to play out. So Hardy kept to himself the whole entire day, and nobody really checked on him. And Eric said that's a fault on his and the company's fault for not going in there knowing the problems that he was having, because not too long before that he was already getting busted for drinking and driving and things like that. And then when Hardy went by Bischoff, he seen him go by, get into the ring, and that's when he noticed that Hardy was off. And they called an audible at that point in time. Bischoff said he went down to the ring, he got in Hardy's face and told him this is exactly what's going to happen, that we're going to ring this bell and you are going to basically more or less lay down, which they kind of if you see it, Sting had to get him into position to get him down. And he says, you're not going to kick out and you're going to lose a match, and basically threatened him with his job at that moment, saying if you do anything other than that, you're basically fired. And you can see it where Hardy's still so out of it that they do put him down on the ground, and Sting is using everything he has to keep him down. And Hardy does the job. He rolls out and off he goes. But Bischoff said, and Conrad Thomas asked him, said, why did you even let it go like that? And he said, if we would have known and we would have done our part of it, that match would have never took place. They would have called an audible, and they could have came up with something that Hardy was hurt or he, missed his flight, and they could have rescheduled another match, and Sting would have walked out still with the championship that night, but under different circumstances.
Yeah, definitely would have been a longer match, and definitely would have been a better match. But yeah, I felt bad for him that night. Chris, do you have anything on that? Or have you even seen it or anything like that?
Who?
Huh?
Oh, I cut out.
Oh. Did you hear about that at any point, or did you see it or anything like that?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
I recommend going back and watching it, Chris. Go check it out.
I will.
It won't take but a couple minutes of your time, I promise you.
Yeah.
It happens fast.
All right, so we're gonna go on to personal experience with being a wrestler. I don't have any, so I mean, I'm sure I know Will does. I'm sure Joe does.
I'm
we'll
in the same boat as you, Dragon Viper.
So we'll start with Will on this.
So this past weekend, I was in Orlando Initially, I had planned on going to Knoxville this coming weekend, but my wife couldn't get off work, and we had some different things going on, so we didn't get to go to Knoxville. But we ended up going to Orlando to the Spooky Empire convention. So right before the convention, they announced that Karrion Kross, Scarlett, and Shotzi would be there. So we thought that was pretty cool. We went to a bunch of different stores looking for some Karrion Kross figures. Couldn't find any. We went to the convention and found a bunch. We got to meet Karrion Kross, Scarlett, and Shotzi. Got a bunch of stuff signed, and really good experience, man. Watching Karrion on TV, I haven't really been a fan at all. I've heard good things about him, but I haven't really been a fan because I haven't really seen where the character is going. I wasn't really a Scarlett fan. Shotzi, I did like. I was a fan of Shotzi, but after meeting them in person, I was so impressed with those people. All three of them, really incredible, really good with the fans. Wanted to talk to you, wanted to spend time with you, wanted to ask, where you were from. Tell me, about watching wrestling or whatever, conversation wise, and we were able to carry on a good conversation, spend some time with those folks, and we got a lot of stuff signed and. Just overall great experience. I was very, very impressed with Karrion Kross and Scarlett, and of course Shotzi. So that was a really great experience. It was unexpected. I also got to see Mick Foley at the same event. Foley, I don't know. I think Foley, I know he's got some cognitive issues, but I don't know. Every time I meet him, it's like he's getting slower and slower, and that's kind of a shame. But I'll cover a lot of that on a different episode. But I wasn't real impressed with meeting Foley this time, and I've met him probably a couple dozen times, honestly. And I was really saddened to speak with him for a few minutes, and he just not his normal self, I would say.
Kind of like incoherent. And...
more or less like, I don't know if it was he didn't really know where he was at, or he didn't really care where he was at, or I don't know. It was just weird. I mean, there wasn't really much conversation. It was more, we talked about some stuff that I was getting him to sign, and I told him about the color I wanted to use and stuff. He wanted to use a different color. He thought it would look better, and we kind of, didn't really disagree on that, but we kind of, debated it for a minute, and he just kind of sat there like maybe he was lost. I don't know. It was strange, but it wasn't my best experience meeting Foley. But, not to take away anything from meeting Karrion Kross, Scarlett, and Shotzi, that was a huge plus. And I was so impressed with those guys, and it's been a while since I've been truly impressed with meeting wrestlers, because I've met quite a few, and I have a long list of wrestlers that I've met. And I could say that meeting those three was in my top tier wrestlers I've met.
Wow. And that's pretty good, too.
Yeah.
Especially with how many you've met. So,
yeah.
We have Christy Wilson saying, "Hi, guys. I love AEW. Hey, Christy, how's it going tonight?" She says, "How cool were they, Will?" So he already mentioned it. Ray says his new gimmick sucks. I haven't seen Karrion Kross really wrestle, so I don't know. I didn't really watch him in NXT or anything, so I can't really mention anything about that. Lou says, "I'm surprised that man can still walk." Talk about Mick Foley. I'm surprised as well. Ray says he didn't help you have a nice day, huh? So, Christy says, "I've never met a wrestler from either WWE or AEW." So, yeah, I mean, and I like hearing about how you meet these wrestlers, because they don't have that kind of, really even have signings in Oregon. So, and let alone wrestlers coming to Oregon pretty much now that, Portland is just a wrestling school. And I mean, they may still have wrestling, Portland wrestling on television. Other than that, yeah, you don't get any big famous wrestlers over here in Oregon. So it kind of sucks. So yeah, I don't really have any. I won't ever, unless I go, move away from Oregon. I won't really have any stories about meeting anybody like that. So, although I do want to jump in though, and I do want to say that I was working for a call center one time, and I did talk to Eddie Guerrero, years ago. I worked for a cell phone call center company, and he had a Nextel phone, so I helped him with his bill a little bit. But other than that, that's about as close as I came to talk to a wrestler. Joe, you have any experiences?
I do. I mean, I mentioned a lot of them last week, but those are the same ones. I haven't ran into anybody recently or anything like that. But like living here in Florida, I always got a good opportunity to see a lot of them because they live here. Pretty close by. You see them out in public and stuff like that. And for the most part, I've not had a bad reaction to any of them. I think a lot of them are fascinated by sometimes the information that you know about them just because of who they are. But I always found it feasible, not to be one of those super fans that runs up to them and when they're eating dinner with their family or anything like that. Hey, can you sign this or anything like that? Because you ain't gonna get very far with that. But
Right.
you just treat them like normal people. I mean, sometimes it's just crazy because you're like, oh my gosh, I see you on TV, and and then the reality of it is, you see them on TV. Sometimes you think they're bigger than what they are. Then when you see them in person, you're like, holy cow, you're like the same height and things like that of me, and it's like, this is cool. But
Yeah.
no, all my stories were last week with like X-Pac and all those, but those are not PG rated for the podcast.
Yeah, it's and I'm not gonna lie, if I were to get out of Oregon and run into a wrestler, I probably would be that fan person, because it'd be the first one I'd see in person. So yeah, I don't know if I'd want to meet him. I mean, Will has no problem at this point, going up to him, having them sign things, and because he's used to it by now. Me, if I were to meet them, I'd be like, oh, and run up to him, hey, can I get a signature, kind of thing, trying not to be inappropriate at the same time while they're eating with their family or things like that. So that'd be tough for me, to be honest, right now.
Yeah, and I think too is like that they're human beings, but they're so cool at some point. You feel that they are, and then like Will can explain a lot of times. You get to meet those guys, and you think they're really cool. And then you meet them, and you're like, holy cow, this person was not what you expected. The complete opposite, ungrateful, and
Yeah.
an a-hole and things like that. And you're just like, wow, what a jerk, And then you get those ones that come across on TV like you would not even dare walk up to meet them because they'll probably rip your face off, and then they're like puppies, and you're like wanting to sit there and talk to you and have 30-40 minute conversation with you, and they don't even know who you are. They just know that you're a fan, but they have taken that much time to get to know you. I mean, Will can say like Lex, I want to meet Lex. I think Lex would be a cool guy to sit down and talk about stories about the past, his experience, how he got in, and just stories, and like Will said, he really sits down and listens to you as a person and wants to know more about you than what you do about him.
Yeah.
That's what I find interesting and cool.
Wow.
I agree.
And going through these comments real quick, OE Sheets, welcome, and hope you're enjoying the show. OE Sheets says Piper was from Oregon, wasn't he? Yes, he was.
Yeah, I was looking that up, and he did fight fought in Oregon.
He had I believe it was a tow yard or a junkyard in Portland.
Well, he lived there until the day he died too.
Yeah. And then Ray says, what do you all think about DiBiase's current issues, which I don't know anything about.
Him and his sons have to pay back the state of Mississippi a lot of money.
Okay. I did hear about that then. Yeah.
But so does Brett Favre and a lot of those guys from the state of Mississippi too.
Yeah. For misinformation or something like that with DHS or something like that. I mean, what's your thought on that, Will?
Well, it's like anything else. These guys don't get involved with stuff like that. They get involved with the charity portion of it. Show up, do some autograph signing, sign some merchandise for us. Let us raffle it off, let us sell it off, or whatever it may be. I don't necessarily know to what full level they were involved, but sometimes when something goes up in smoke, it's easier to blame the celebrities that are involved, and I think they just kind of got the tailwind of it. I think Brett Favre was the target because they saw money and an opportunity for money, and then they saw these other guys' names and they assume they have money, and I don't think much is going to come out of it. I know there was a judgment ruled against them that they had to pay back X amount of dollars, but they said it's millions and millions of dollars. But like Brett Favre was responsible for 700,000, DiBiase is responsible for like 200,000, his kid's responsible for like 400,000. So it's not the big news story that it's cracked up to be once you read into the story itself. So I think people just get caught up in scams and schemes, and look at the Mike Tysons of the world. How many scams and schemes was that caught up in? And look at some of these other guys. How many scams and schemes were they caught up in? It eventually just goes away, and I don't think it hurts any of them from the fan perspective whatsoever. I mean, I think it's just something that their name was tied into, and something that just happened.
Well, God, I love the media for that one, for blowing things out of proportion. So,
Big news.
True.
So
Speaking of Tyson, I hope he fights Logan Paul and just knocks him on his Easter.
In February.
I hope so.
They were talking about it, and then they said it was called off again. So who knows? But I hope it happens. I just want somebody just to knock that guy on his.
Yep, me too.
Knock him on his butt, man. But
Right.
I agree with Will with that real quick. Is like they were involved in stuff, and I think they may have took some money and didn't fulfill their end of it as well too, and then they just started digging around. Like Favre, he he took money for some speaking engagements that he didn't commit to, and that could have been for whatever reason. He could have not been feeling good, whatever. But that's basically what it is. Is like they took money for their companies. And with their church things that they're doing up there, the DiBiase's are, and Ted DiBiase Jr. runs a camp, and took money, or was given money, however you want to look at it, and one thing led to another, and he wasn't able to fulfill his commitments of it, and the people were upset, and they kind of got sued, and the state of Mississippi said, "All right, you got to pay us back," and it's kind of what they're doing. They're just paying back the money that was given to them.
Yeah. All right. Well, and we're cutting out of time here, so I'm going to go around each of you and, give you 30, 45 seconds to say what you want. I'll start with Will on this.
Huge shout out to Top Rope Collectibles, all the members there, all the folks that came in, checked us out tonight. Thanks for that. We had some great topics tonight. We got to figure out a way to become more all inclusive, get more people involved with their points of view. We want to see the comments. We want the people to comment, and we want you to ask questions and make statements. And that's what we're looking for. So thank you to Coast to Coast Entertainment Network for having us on again. Sincerely appreciate it. Like I said, huge shout out to all Top Rope members.
All right. Thank you, Will and Joe.
Shout out to Top Rope Collectibles, man. Will takes my money every week. But I am the MJF of the group, and I'm better than you, and you know it. Yeah. But no, I enjoy it, guys, and we don't pretend to know it all. So we enjoy having everybody discuss it, and that's all it is. Bunch of boys and girls getting together talking about men and women wrestling in their underwear.
I like that. That's funny. And then Chris.
But it's all real, It's not fake. Wrestling's not fake.
Oh no, not at all.
No.
All right, Chris.
Thank you guys for watching, tuning in, interacting with the show. Stay with Coast to Coast. We got great shows coming up, and we talk everything from wrestling to sports to everything in between. So just check us out.
All right, thank you, Chris. And Lou says we all should know William Hudson needs more than 45 seconds to talk, and then says nothing but love, William Hudson. So I do want.
If Adam was here tonight, we would all lost.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I do want to thank everybody for showing up and commenting. It was said that we appreciate the comments. We thrive on them and we go off on them. So we appreciate the comments. We appreciate people watching the show. And thank you everybody for coming in and being part of this. And thank you, Joe and Will and Chris, and thank you, Chris, for producing as well. And I just want to say I hope everybody has a good night. Ace will be here hopefully, depending on how the World Series is going. So hopefully,
not good tonight for him.
No.
So hopefully Ace will be back here again next Tuesday night for another, night of Tuesday Night Mania. And I hope everybody has a good night.
A safe Halloween.
And have a safe